participants are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, welcome. We are now ready to begin our webinar, Coaching, How to Help Somebody Succeed. Next slide. I'm Virginia with Rutgers Executive and Professional Education, and I will be your host and moderator. Rutgers Executive and Professional Education is the proud sponsor of today's webinar, and we're very excited to include this topic into our webinar series. Next slide. We encourage everybody to send us any questions you may have. To do so, you will use your control panel located on the upper right-hand portion of the screen. You'll click the orange arrow, type your questions into the question box, and press send. We will respond to all questions throughout the presentation. Next slide. The webinar is being recorded, and a link to the archive version will be sent to you by email by early next week. Next slide. It's now my pleasure to introduce our instructor. Kathleen Cashman is president of Cashman Consulting, LLC, an international management consulting and training firm. In addition to teaching for Rutgers Executive and Professional Education, Kathleen is also an adjunct professor at Rutgers teaching within the Masters of Business and Science in the area of communication and leadership. Kathleen, please take it away.
Thanks, Jenny, and welcome everybody. We have an opportunity here to talk to you about how to help others succeed, and we're so excited to be able to do that, but we have very little bit of time, so we're going to just get started. If you're like most people with responsibilities for getting things done through and with others, you're not alone. These questions on this slide are probably things that you've thought about or you've talked to other people about, and we're going to attempt to answer these within the context of our time. So what I'm trying to say is this skill is something we can all look to learn more about, no matter how well we are developed. And to master these skills, it means that we need each other, meaning that you can't do coaching by yourself. There are additional skills that you'll need, certainly, as we build the coaching skill. Things like conflict resolution, emotional intelligence, communication, building relationships, teams, problem solving, negotiation, and so many more. And we are, certainly here at the Rutgers community, we are prepared to help you with those as well, so stay tuned. The good news is that everybody's different. We're different in where we're starting. We're different in our development needs. The bad news is that everybody's different. So a one-size-fits-all model isn't going to work for all. But what we have to share with you here today is what you can take, and then with the support of your knowledge, your team, certainly, and our team here, we can help you customize it so that it works for you. What we know you're going to pick up today is understanding what effective coaching looks like, how to handle maybe some difficult situations as we talk through some of them, certainly then how you can continue to grow and learn in this skill. So let's first start with what coaching isn't, because in the 20th century it looked very different than what it needs to look in the 21st century. First of all, it's not a remedial device, right? It's not only for those people who are not performing or that you have what we call no hope for. They're just biding their time. It is not something that is done offline and lacks a business purpose. It is different than mentoring, although mentoring does fall into the coaching spectrum. There are times you'll go in and out of it. It is not for just the boss and subordinate. You can use coaching skills with your peers, with your clients, with your spouse, with your kids. And certainly, and one thing I want to stress, is that coaching is not negative. Dealing with ongoing weaknesses is not something we're all want to do. However, in coaching, we're looking at how do we grow people? How do we take what it is that we're bringing to the table and make it that much better? So the emphasis, or what I call the positive intent, needs to come out in everything that you're doing. So then what is coaching? It's a tool, right? It's to help you help take someone's performance to the next level, whatever that next level needs to be. You can't do it in one giant step, so it's not something you do and check off your list. It is dynamic, which means that it's an exchange of information. It's not about the coach coming and telling. It's about the coach coming and pulling information and sometimes pushing information into the equation. We know that coaching works from a formal perspective, but in today's crazy busy world of the 21st century, we need to look at the informal and making it work, or what I call coachable moments. And it is a question of guiding success. So one of the tools early on I want you to take note of is the concept of waait, W-A-I-T. That's going to be very important to your conversation since we want it to be dynamic. And waait stands for, why am I talking? There are times in the coaching process that you need to be on the listening side of the equation, more times than you probably can even acknowledge right now. But by the end of this, you'll see why. And certainly coaching in the 21st century has an impact on all parts, the coach, the coachee, the team, and certainly the organization. So I'd like you to take a moment, since it's a dynamic process and this is one way to get dynamics, I'd like you to rate yourself right now using a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, on where you perceive your skill in coaching today. Take a moment. One of these numbers best describes you. Next to your number, I would like you to make a note as to what is it that you believe you do and do it that well, your number, well, that helps you be that successful. What do you do? For what we want to do is take that to the next level. This is a word. We all know the word awareness, but it is a key tool for you. And today, awareness is a skill. And what does it mean? It means that you are open to looking at what you're doing and what you could be doing differently for a different level of success. That's both you as a coach and you as a coachee. You're aware that this requires time. Most use time as an excuse. Leaders are accountable for their actions, we know, and they figure out how to get around obstacles. So planning is key. So if you want to get the best performance out of your team, then you're going to have to plan to get that best performance, which means that you're going to need to schedule it. Schedule the formal, and certainly schedule for you the opportunities to look for the informal. We're all crazy busy, and we're going from meeting to meeting, and sometimes we're preparing for the next meeting as we're on our way to that meeting. Coaching cannot take on that forum. You need to put the time in, and the upfront time is going to be key. What is it that you can do to best prepare yourself for those coachable moments? I can say to you about 10 minutes a day of follow-through, some note-taking, looking at your notes, translating them into action. By the end of the year, you will have grown yourself, and you will have had the opportunity to help somebody else grow. And it comes down to that, just 10 minutes a day as you are purposefully looking to do this. And certainly, from an awareness perspective, you need to be aware that coaching allows for not only self-motivation, but also commitment. And the big thing, certainly the big key today, is how do I keep my team committed, challenged, motivated, right, to do the things that we need to get done when we know they're working under circumstances that may be less than ideal. They may be, we had 5 resources last year or last month, and we now only have 3 or 4. So I'm doing more. Coaching is an opportunity for you to help with that. You may not be able to remove the circumstances, but you can certainly help me think about what do I need to do differently in order to get this done. The 20th century was challenging, but the 21st century is even more so. So coaching, again, has become a huge skill, and certainly from an awareness perspective, we need to be aware of your thoughts on the situation coming in, so the mindset, You need to be aware of your preparation, what you need to do. You need to be aware of the relationship that you have with this individual. You need to be aware of where you are in the course of the conversation, whether it's a formal meeting or an informal. And you need to be aware of the questions that you ask, the type of questions. So in essence, it comes down to mindset, preparation, and relationship. The actual conversation can be anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to 30 to 40 to 60 minutes, however long you have. And that's key. I want to bring in a concept here from a marketing perspective, because you as a coach, you're marketing your coaching services to your team. And one of the things we know about buyer behavior, people who you're going to buy, your coachees, people buy for emotional reasons and substantiate it with logic. So the emotional connection, the relationship with your coachee, whether they report to you, you report to them, and or it's someone outside of that relationship, is key. One thing we want to put up front is what I call the concept of the power of knowing. And there are 3 types of knowledge bases that we have today to work with. The first is, I know what I know. An example of that is, I know my name. You know your name. The second knowledge base that we all have is, I know what I don't know. I like to use the example of, I do not know how to skydive, nor do I want to learn. The second part of that knowing is key. What action am I willing to take as a result of knowing I don't know something? When I know I don't know it and commit to some action, it now gets the ability to move it over to the I know what I know. The last type of knowing, and the one that's key to you as a coach, is I don't know what I don't know. And you as the coach don't know all the circumstances that are going on with the situation at hand that you're trying to be supportive on. You don't know what it is that was going through the mind of your coachee. You don't know what your coachee knows that they haven't shared with you. So there's lots of things that you don't know when you enter into a conversation, no matter how prepared you are. And when you keep that in mind, that is going to help you be a better coach. What you want to do throughout the coaching process, in the formal and certainly in the coachable moments, is to make sure that you're peeling back enough of those layers, or if I could borrow an expression from the movie Shrek, peel back the onion, and see what is lying behind the performance, underneath the performance, to see what is it that we can do to mitigate the issue so that we can maximize the performance. So what I'd like you to do next to your rating of yourself as a coach is to write down for a moment, what's one goal that you have for you as a coach? And if you're familiar with the SMART concept, you can put it in SMART form: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-related. And as you have your goal, jot down, what are 3 things you can do to meet this goal? Just off the top of your head, what is it that you can do? Do you want to be a better listener? You want to ask better questions, be a better relationship builder, be a better thinker? Then you might put things down like, these are some ways that I can listen better. Or here are 3 questions that I could ask. Or here's a way that I can carve out time to better prepare. Those are some of the things that we'd like you to start with. Now, what I just did with you is important for you to do with your coachees. It's making sure that at the beginning of each dialogue, you have a goal. What is it that you are going to do? In our example here are just some of the goals that could be set for you as a coach. We want to make sure, though, that the goals are set for all of our coachees so that we both have something to focus on, and that becomes very, very important. As you know, the more you know about yourself and the more you know about the other person, the better you're going to be able to develop this relationship. In other words, it's always you in relation to me or me in relation to you. And I say that meaning you've got a perspective, you've got a wisdom, your coachee has a perspective, they have a wisdom, you have a personality, they have a personality, they have issues and challenges, you have issues and challenges. No one situation is the situation. It's the combination. And the gap between where you are and where they are is what you as a coach needs to minimize as you go through it. It's also a concept that we find in emotional intelligence. So that's a real good body of knowledge for each of us as coaches to dive into. So as we get ready to start, I want to go to your mindset and or your intention. When you've got clear intention, right, you can visualize your goals. I want this person to be successful. Bring positive energy to it. Know that there's going to be an action plan that comes out of it, their action, not yours. And certainly controlling your own habits. Sometimes we like to talk. Well, I have to control that and use the waait concept. Sometimes we like to listen. I have to control that and maybe add more value in the conversation. However, what I want to make sure that happens is that the conversation is dynamic. Your intention, let me go to mindset. Your intention, do you believe that this person can improve their performance? That is something you as a coach needs to think through because that's where positive intent starts. For your coachee, let's talk about their mindset. Their experiences are building upon their beliefs and their values. It's adding a perspective of truth. Their beliefs and their values are adding to, controlling their actions and behaviors. Their actions and behaviors are the direct input to their results. Their results then fuel back to their experiences and the cycle continues. So sometimes when I'm looking to change the result, I need to look below the surface at what are their beliefs. One of the big beliefs is the belief in self. So as a coach, what you're always trying to do is build the confidence as you are building improvement. So we want to build on the positive to build that confidence. And when we have to give the critical feedback, notice I did not say negative, critical feedback, we do it in a way that honors the individual, upholds their dignity and respect, and builds that relationship. Everything comes down to that relationship.
Kathleen? Kathleen,
yes.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you? We just received a question.
Sure.
And the question is, would you be able to discuss the difference between boss role and coach role?
Boss, B-O-S-S, boss role
Yes.
and coach role?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So let's digress for just a moment to what is a boss. A boss is someone who is responsible for getting things done, right, and is also responsible for my performance review. A coach is responsible, when you have that role, for improving performance. When you are the boss coach, you've got both roles, to improve the performance as well as do the performance review. When you're not the boss, your complete intention is for performance improvement. I would hope that as a boss, your complete intention would be that as well. But sometimes getting the result trumps improvement in performance. And we've all made short-term decisions like, let me tell you what to do, or let me do it for you, in the absence of time to be able to get it done. So the boss deals with the time pressure differently than the coach deals with the time pressure. Hopefully that has answered the question. If not, let me know as we continue to move forward. So knowing the person that you are coaching and knowing yourself, right? That's part of the knowing. What do I know? What don't I know? And not to give you assessments, although assessments are important, and I would highly recommend you take as many as you can. But here, let's talk about the things that you need to know and the things you already know about the people that you could be coaching and coaching better. One is, are they extrovert, meaning they get their energy from outside of themselves? Or are they introvert, which means that they need to go inside of themselves to get energy to respond to the external world? Think about yourself. Where do you fall there, extrovert or introvert? Now let's think about what is the focus. Do you talk with people who usually start the conversation focused on what needs to get done, the task? Or do you talk with more people that focus on the people, like, hi, how are you? How was your weekend? What's going on? Think about yourself. Are you more task-focused or people-focused? Let's just say that I'll use myself. I am more extrovert than introvert. I'm more people than task. So I would mark myself in the upper right-hand corner with an X. And let's say I'm talking to someone who's more introvert and task-oriented. So the lower left-hand corner, I would mark an X. Can you see just from that visual of an X in the right and an X in the lower left that we're different? My job as a coach is to recognize that difference coming in and make that person that I'm talking to comfortable. If I start talking about, hi, how was your weekend, and go on for that for 5-10 minutes, that person is going to become uncomfortable. They want to get it done. So I, as a coach, may choose to start with the agenda. Here's what it is that we need to get done. Go through the meeting of talking about and getting ideas, and at the end come back to myself and say, hey, how are things going? What else is it that we can share? That's just one way of using the information that I know about a person and creating an environment that supports the learning and development and certainly builds the relationship. Because relationship matters. What we want to make sure is throughout the coaching process, we're demonstrating that understanding and we're demonstrating empathy. This is where emotional intelligence comes in. Demonstrating empathy is not about saying to somebody, I know how you feel. It is about recognizing that there's feelings in the room and that their feelings are theirs. So I might do something like say to my coachee, hey, Kathleen, what I'm noticing as we're talking is that you've pulled back from the table and we've kind of lost that connection with our eyes. I'm not quite sure what's going on. In my experience, if it were me, it might say that I'm becoming a little defensive. However, can you let me know what's happening with you? See, what I did was own the feeling for myself, use my own experience in demonstrating that I can empathize here, but then I'm asking for input. What is it that has happened? What is it that has occurred that's caused you to feel this way, if it is in fact a feeling? The person on the other end has choice here to be able to say, no, I'm fine, or two, hey, you know what, I am frustrated. I'm frustrated because we are, whatever, talking about this again. It allows for the person who's task focused to not have to open up. But the message that you're sending is that you're aware and that you care. And that goes a long way to building the relationship. You want to, in everything you do, build trust and certainly support candor. And the definition of candor is that we can share information and not worry about repercussion. This is a conversation that we should be able to get down to, hey, let me just talk to you about what I feel, how I see it, and not have to worry about being politically correct in this meeting. We want to make sure everything we do demonstrates respect for the individual, and certainly by watching my tone of voice and watching my gestures and watching the gestures and tone of voice and body language of the individual that I'm talking to, I can demonstrate that respect. And as we've talked earlier, positive intent. Everything you do in and around the relationship in this meeting and outside needs to be exuding the positive intent that we believe that we can grow. I believe that you can grow, and I believe in you. So the purpose is to make sure that we're building that effective relationship, and again, doing that through multiple avenues, including knowing enough about myself to be able to look at the other that I'm working with and saying, in relation to you or in relation to me, here's how I would feel. Here's what I would think. and then being able to clarify and verify those thoughts to get information from your coachee. Many of you, having just come off of a holiday season, may have had some cookies as you were in that holiday season. And one of the cookies that floats around my house is Gingerbread Person, Gingerbread Man, whatever it is that you want to call it. And I like to use this figure to demonstrate what coaching is all about. So if you look at the head of this gingerbread person, that is usually where we place a set of eyes. And those eyes have an analogy to coaching in that those eyes set direction. So having a goal, having a purpose, having a vision, all of that at the beginning of the coaching process is important. You can use performance goals, you can use the challenge or the issue at hand, you can use an abstract like building better relations in order to set that direction. Just below that you have the arms, the right and the left. And I like to use that analogy of saying that we're going to wrap our arms around the performance. So one arm, you want to look to see what is it that I know from observation, my own or someone else's. And the other arm is about what is lying beneath that surface level of performance. And that's where we're going to borrow from Shrek and peel back the onion here as to what are some of the things that could be below the performance that is causing a performance challenge that I may be having difficulty getting over. Where we all intend to be good and we all intend to do our best. Once I've wrapped my arms around performance, and this probably will be where you'll spend 15 to 20% of the coaching time allocated, whether you have 10 minutes or you have 100 minutes, that around the conversation, so that you can get a clear picture of what's going on before you then move to the feet. And the feet signify moving forward, right? This is taking action and identifying opportunity. In the 20th century, we went from the head to the feet. In the 21st century, we need to go from the head to the arms to the feet. And when we do that complete process and engage our other that we're talking with, then it lends itself to better development. So direction, wrapping your arms around, observation, and moving forward. Now, I want to just make a point about sometimes we want to set some stretch goals. And having a goal coming in, let's say you want me to do 10x, and you know I've been doing 10x for a while, and you now want to stretch me. Maybe you want me to do 11 or 12. Well, the concept of stretch goals I can relate to the high jump, right, and the power of coaching. Back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, when the high jump was first looked at, we had a technique. And that technique took us into the 19th century. And somewhere around 1920, the technique changed. And as you follow the performance curve, every time the technique changed, the Western roll, the straddle, to the current day Fosbury flop, the performance improved. So with your team member, setting stretch goals, wanting that improvement may mean that the technique needs to be altered. So I want you to use that concept as you look to raise your standards, raise your stretch of your individual to say they can't do it the same way. Something needs to change, and that change is often what we as a coach needs to focus on, our support. How can you be there? What is it that you can do so that this person can become successful? Setting stretch goals, standards, is a way to reach a much bigger goal. So the short term, what does it look like? Medium term and the long term as we start to move ourselves forward. So you might take something that says, hey, in 2 years we're going to be at 40, but from now into the next 6 months we're going to stretch ourselves and do 10. And then the next 6 months we may do 5 more, so 15. And then the next, see how we can progress by stretching ourselves. That goes with the eyes. So now, what lies beneath performance? As we start to look, you can see that there are many layers, right? There's the situation, the motivation, there's skills, experience, and then there's the individual themselves. And you as a coach needs to bring questions to uncover what are some of the things that are going on. Well, that then prepares us for a dynamic discussion. And the discussion, I would say to you, is the roadmap that I'd like to leave with you. And that roadmap says the widest part of the discussion happens at the wrapping your arms around and then at the identifying opportunity for performance. So there's two parts. However, it is guided by you understanding where you are in the conversation. So that goal that we're looking for, and you being observant about what's happening in the environment. If the environment is supportive and you have an exchange and you're getting along, the absence of a powerful emotion, then you want to keep going and doing what you're doing, stay on goal. If you get off goal, it's easier to get back on goal by restating the goal. If the environment starts to become defensive, right, meaning that there's emotion that is now coming in, you need to use your emotional intelligence, identify what is causing the emotion, come to some short-term or then long-term relationship building in that area, and then you can move yourself towards the goal at hand. This usually, at the emotional stage, is what challenges most coaches as we are coaching. We want to just glide by the emotional component. Here are actually the things that you do in the course of the conversation. At the widest part, you're acknowledging things. You're acknowledging emotion, you're acknowledging ideas, and certainly you're encouraging the continuation of that. This is where waait helps you. You'll be listening while somebody else is speaking. At the lower portion, you've got direction setters, in bringing information, bringing some direction, and bringing some critical feedback. In the middle, we have the ability to use questions. And we all know there are two types of questions, the open and the closed, and they are both relevant in coaching. However, the more open-ended your questions are, the more information that you are going to have access to. The more information that's accessible in this meeting, the better the options or the avenues for improvement will be. The more the other person is talking about their thoughts, the more they can solve their own issues because they're hearing it themselves. So questions are the key to maintaining and certainly getting the information on the table and for having growth. So you might be saying, wow, this is so much for my brain. So what does my brain look like during this coaching session? Well, one, you're focused on building the relationship. Two, you're focused on setting an environment where you can do and practice the cornerstones of relationship building. Three, you're looking to identify where you are in the course of the conversation and establish what supportive environment looks like. So your awareness barometer is high. You want to be aware of not only the results, but everything that lies beneath those results so that you can look to that person and say, you as an individual, I can help you, regardless of if you and I are not the same. Remember, am I extrovert, introvert, task-focused, or people-focused? You want to set a goal, wrap your arms around the performance, and certainly then have an opportunity to talk about how we move forward by utilizing both observations that are yours and others, but owning them, plus peeling back the things that fall below the performance level. That's your brain on coaching. You cannot possibly be doing something else as you are committed to having this coaching conversation. So when coachable moments happen and you're preparing for the next meeting, that may not be the time for you to have a coachable moment, but you may not have an opportunity to do it, so you must stop. You must stop what you are doing and focus on this individual. And that requires you to have a mindset of development. That requires you to believe that you can. So let me stop here for a moment because we've put a lot of information out there in the short amount of time that we've had here. And I want you to rate yourself now on your knowledge of what 21st century coaching looks like. You rated yourself on your coaching ability at the beginning, and now what is it that 21st century coaching looks like? And now I want you to go to the skills that you identified at the beginning, and I want you to list what are some other things that you can do to be a better coach. If you had said you want to be a better listener, you want to be a better question asker, you want to be a better relationship builder, have you picked up some things that you can do within the coaching environment, regardless of the situation you're coaching, in order to be better at that? Okay. So Ginny, I'm going to call you back in here, for I know there might be some other questions that we've received along the way. And as my clock here is just hitting the 12:30 mark, I want to be certainly mindful of our time.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Yes, we do have one more question that came in. And our question is, if I don't have a great relationship with my colleague, do you have any tips on how I can coach them and not in any way offend them?
That's a great question. So going back to first setting the environment, you want to make sure that the environment is conducive of a conversation. And two, I would state my intention up front. To be able to say, what I'd love to do is help you and support you in any way that I can. And I would also like to work on bettering our relationship. That's my goal for the coaching process. And as you do that, as you enlist the support of the other individual in the building a better relationship, you don't have to be best friends. You certainly don't have to have a lunch with each other all the time. However, in this 21st century world, we do need to build our relationships daily. So the other thing that I would do is every day look to do something that would encourage the building of relationship. And you'd be very surprised as to the small things that you can do that will matter the most, like even taking the time to say hello, asking, how are you, and not walking away. Those are things that build relationships.
Great, thank you so much, Kathleen. So that looks like that's all the questions we've received. If any questions come to you, participants, please feel free to email me. I can always send them to Kathleen, and Kathleen can answer them for you. So Kathleen, this was a great presentation. Thank you so much. It was very informative. And we'd also like to thank you participants for attending our webinar today. We'd like to offer you a 20% discount to enroll in any of our one-day or more 21st century leadership programs that are listed on the screen. Classes are filling up, so please reserve your spot today. You can go to our website, epe.rutgers.edu, and you can use the discount code 021617. And if you'd go to the next slide, Kathleen, the webinar has been approved for 1 business recertification credit through HRCI and 0.5 professional development credit through SHRM. If you'd like those codes, please email me. My email address is at the bottom of the screen. And this concludes our webinar for today. As I mentioned earlier, a link to the archive recording of the presentation will be emailed to you shortly. We hope to see you in our future workshops. And again, for more information, please visit our website, epe.rutgers.edu. Thanks so much. Bye.